Our guest today is Carlyn Montes De Oca. Carlyn is an acupuncturist, plant-based nutritional consultant, and an expert in the animal-human health connection. Based on her own experience with her rescue animals, seeing the benefits with her own patients, and gathering other animal lover stories, Carlyn has written a book titled Dog is My Doctor, Cat is My Nurse, an animal lover's guide to healthy, happy, and extraordinary life. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Carl. It's my pleasure to be here.
As an animal person and a pet person, I'm excited for this interview.
Oh, great. Let me ask you, what kind of animals do you have in your home?
Well, for a long time, I had a roommate as a cat. My cat was my roommate for probably 8 years. And about a little over a year ago, we got a puppy.
Oh, what kind of puppy?
She is a Dachshund Whippet mix. So it's a strange combination. You don't usually hear much about that.
So that would be like a Dippet.
A Dippet, yeah.
Yes.
A Dippet. I'll have to remember that. Yeah, she's about 35 pounds. She kind of looks like a miniature greyhound, but she's got more of a dachshund face.
And you love her, I'm sure.
She's awesome.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
My son, who was afraid of dogs, is no longer afraid of dogs.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
Yeah. So your book, I love the title of the book. Tell us about how you come up with that.
You know, it's a funny thing. When I started to realize that animals could really enhance your health and that people could really benefit on every level of their being, mind, body, spirit, I suddenly started to think, well, you know, I could write a book, but I didn't have a title. I knew how important a title was. And funny enough, it was my dogs and my cats that helped me come up with that title. And I'll tell you, one day I was walking my dog, and I literally remember passing a corner of a house, and suddenly it came to me, dog is my doctor. And I thought, wow, that's kind of catchy. But then I went home. And the cats, you know, they have to have the last word on this. I went and lied down because I was a little tired. And as I lay down, my cat jumped on my back. And I went, cat is my nurse. I went, dog is my doctor, cat is my nurse. So that's how we came up with the title.
And it just fell in line. It just fell in line. That's great.
It just fell in line. It's true.
Great.
Yeah.
You call yourself an animal human health expert.
Yes.
Define that for us.
What I began to see, just from my own personal experience, at first it began as my own experience of noticing that my dogs had a profound influence on my stress levels, which were very high. Back in the day, I used to be a film editor, and my stress was through the roof. When I changed over and decided to work more in wellness, I'm an acupuncturist and plant-based nutritionist, then I needed to teach people about how to de-stress, so I had to de-stress myself, and I spent a period of time where I was moving through that transition, and I found that walking my dogs, taking care of them, all of the things that they brought into my life, you know, their companionship, their love, their friendship, all of these things had a profound effect on decreasing my stress. What I noticed with my cats, interestingly enough, was I was going through a divorce, and I was going through a really, really difficult time. I had a lot of anxiety, I had insomnia, I wasn't sleeping, I was lonely, and my cats were there for me. When I couldn't sleep, my cats would jump on me, and suddenly just their warmth and their comfort would knock me out. It was like a sleeping pill for me, and they helped me a lot with my anxiety and my stress. When I started to see that about myself, I started to notice, well, my patients who started to come in to see me started to tell me stories too about how their animals had helped them, and I thought, wow, I'm not the only one. And then science started to kick in, and I started to read these articles about how animals help us with high blood pressure, they help decrease our cholesterol, they help us through stress, they help us in all these countless ways. And as an acupuncturist, I look at the whole mind, body, spirit, and I thought to myself, well, how far can animals take this? You know, can they help us at every level of our well-being? And I started to research, I started to collect stories, I would talk to people, and as soon as I would say, I'm working on this topic, the animal-human health connection, boom, they'd have a story. So I started to compile all of this information and research, and that's how, over the years, I became more of an expert in that field.
So you were looking beyond what most people typically think of as the stress reduction.
Yes.
The stress reduction. So
Yes.
tell me, are there some other things that we might not know? Like, obviously there's the stress reduction. There's some other things?
Yeah, I think that the more common things that people realize that they've heard probably in the news are stress reduction, high blood pressure, things of that nature. I wrote a book. My animals help me be more creative.
Oh, yeah.
As I'm writing, did they ever leave my side? My husband always comments on this. Those dogs follow you everywhere. The cats want to be on your lap all of the time. We lock ourselves into the room and I'm working. But as a creative person writing, you can't just seclude yourself completely. But sometimes you don't want to talk to people. Sometimes you don't want to have that experience. You want to just be quiet. You have your animals there to, to hold, to tell you when it's time to go take a walk because you've been sitting there way too long.
Right.
We all know that sitting
Yeah.
is the new smoking, right? So they get me up. So that was one thing I learned about about being more creative with animals. Another thing is in my research, one of the things I was able to do is, Carl, I went to prison. I went to San Quentin prison.
Really?
I went to San Quentin prison because...
For research?
For research.
Okay.
They have a program with the Marin Humane Society, which is the area I live in, Northern California, where prisoners will be able to work with animals that have been brought in for rescue because they need special attention. They need either medications, they need help with socialization, and the dogs will go and live with these prisoners at the prison. What I was able to see from my research and talking to the prisoners and getting a tour by some of the prisoners of their facility, how much animals that help them work past, because we all know that an emotional aspect of our well-being is part of our whole aspect of wellness, correct? Part of our whole well-being. They were helping them. I mean, prisoners who felt intolerant, people who had fought dogs in the past suddenly said, hey, they've allowed me to be more tolerant. They've showed me what it is to care about someone else. I have a child, now I know how to be more loving towards that child. So there were many, many things that I was surprised to learn about. And if you also look at, I just want to say one last thing, if you ever look up Google online, how many therapy animals there are, emotional rescue animals, service animals. When I grew up, it used to be for the blind, right? Seeing eye dogs. That was it. Yeah. Now you have, PTSD.
Soldiers. Yeah.
Absolutely. You have, and I've researched these, these people have shared stories with me. I have a person who takes their dog with them who's regularly in front of the camera speaking to media, and their dog will be there noticing, because they have bipolar, noticing if they are getting too anxious, or at nighttime if the person who has to sleep is maybe taking some medication to help them sleep, if there's an emergency, that dog will wake them up. It's incredible.
It is incredible. I saw a video on YouTube, can't remember when, but a person with some sort of disabilities, she's battling with something, and the house camera picked her up, and she was having an emotional breakdown.
Yeah.
And the dog ran up
Right.
and just totally diffused that situation. Totally diffused the situation. It was a really powerful moment.
Yeah, it is a powerful moment. I was even reading yesterday online that I can't remember what USC, University of Southern California, now has a wellness dog. A
Really?
Wellness dog on campus.
We
They
want to
have
get a
their own
wellness dog
office.
for the office. Can you talk to my boss?
You know what? I'll do that. I'll see what I can do. I'll see what I can do
We'll
for
have
you.
a dog. We'll have a dog day. We'll bring the dogs in. We'll diffuse everybody.
I am the animal human health expert, so I will have a conversation with
Excellent.
your employer.
Thank you so much. In the book, you talk about living wholeheartedly. Explain to us exactly what that is and how we can possibly achieve that.
Well, let me ask you. You just adopted a puppy. Do you see any wholeheartedness in your home? What you think might be wholeheartedness with your family, how they react to your puppy, how they are around him?
Well, it's been a learning experience for all of us. I mean, I grew up with dogs, so it was a little different for me. I was kind of prepared. I knew kind of the first year is going to be, there's a lot of learning involved.
Yeah.
My wife had never had a pet. My son was actually fearful of dogs for
right.
most of his childhood.
Right.
So it was a big learning experience, but he was hinting to us, I want to get a puppy, I want to get a puppy. So he was ready to kind of cross that barrier. And it's really changed everything about the household dynamic, feeding time, waking up in the morning. She's always there. She's always involved in everything that we do. She's gotten us outside more. We view everything that we do a little differently now.
I would say that in my experience, if I were to maybe rewrite the title of the book, the Wholehearted book, I mean, this is what animals give us. They truly work from their heart. And I think that the world would be so different if all of us followed that example and came from our heart. A story comes to mind about wholehearted living, about the idea of living with your heart, and it comes to me because there was a dog that I rescued a long time ago. I already had 6 animals. I always call it my 6-pack that I write about in my book. I couldn't take on another dog. Just the dynamic wouldn't have worked. But I had to rescue this dog because he was about to be euthanized, and this was his 65, 70-pound, big lab, pit bull, I don't know what mix, who had not had the best few years of his life prior to that. In fact, he was so scared that in the kennel, he would always go to the back, and all you saw was blackness back there, except for 2 beady, glassy eyes. That was it. Nobody could walk him. Finally, when I tried to make friends with him and I went in there, I tried to walk him, he couldn't walk. He had lived in a car for 2 years and never really been walked, so he just started bucking and pulling, and I was like, oh my gosh. And then when I heard he was going to be euthanized, I agreed to take on the guardianship of him, but I had to find him a home. And I did find him a home in Montana, which was 3 days away from Los Angeles in the middle of winter, and I had to get him out there. And here was a dog who was so fearful, and people were afraid of him. Yet I took him to this couple who were an older couple. The first thing he did when he walked in the house, jumped on their dining room table. All of their dishes were rattling, and I was just thinking to myself, oh my God, they're not going to want him. I've just driven, and this is his chance. And I turned around, and they were laughing. I said, oh my gosh, is it okay? They're like, of course, it's fine. Many years later, the lady called me, and she had kidney cancer, and she was in her last days. And she called to tell me how much she loved this dog, how much this dog had changed her life, how much during this time when she really needed him, he was there for her, and they had such a special heart connection. And when she died, he died not too long after that. And I thought to myself, gosh, if I hadn't had that experience he made me go out of my comfort zone and learn a lot about how to connect with him and how to help him connect to me. So we connected heart to heart. He connected with her heart to heart in a way that, she, wherever she is, she took that with her, that love with her, and he had that second chance. So I think that pretty much says to anybody what wholeheartedness is.
Yeah, I think you're right. Mm-hmm. Explain to us, you in the book, you note that there's a very important distinction between animal owner and animal guardian. Mm-hmm. Talk about that for a second.
Sure, I'd love to. When we think of ourselves as animal owners, think of the word. I own a bag. I own a computer. I own these pair of pants.
It's things.
It's a thing. It's a possession, right? It's a commodity. It's something that I can discard whenever I want. And I really don't have, I might like my pants, but I don't have a love relationship with my pants.
You're probably not going to cry after they fade.
Right. It's that idea. A lot of people have that mentality when it comes to animals, with dogs and cats. I mean, working in shelters, volunteering in shelters, I've heard so many stories. Well, I don't want this dog. He just ate my shoes. I don't want this cat. It just peed on my rug. I don't want, I'm moving. I can't take them. And these animals who have formed a loving attachment to these people are now discarded.
Right, they don't know.
They don't know. There's millions of animals in shelters who may never find homes again. And I think to myself, well, this is the idea of being an owner. If one thought of themselves as being a guardian, and this is not my idea, Dr. Ellie Katz from In Defense of Animals was the first one to come up with this idea of guardianship. If we consider ourselves guardians of our animals, think of just the mindset of that.
It's an instant shift.
Instant shift, absolutely right. And science has also backed this up. There are studies that have been done that the difference between considering yourself an owner versus a guardian, guardians tend to consider animals as part of their household, part of their family. They're less likely to relinquish. They will bring a dog inside. They won't necessarily leave them outside to be in the cold and in the elements. They are also more empathetic. That's something that we've seen. Empathy is a key to a better world and a better, just humanity to being better. Empathy. If we can teach our children empathy, how different would everything be?
Right. I wholeheartedly agree with that statement.
I am so going to talk to your employer.
Well, I'm enjoying the relationship with our dog. Is there anything we can do to enhance these relationships? Maybe I'm not taking full advantage of the opportunity we have with Jessie.
Jessie, I love that name.
Jessie.
That's a really good question because I think that is the key question. Most of us are, when we begin with animals, we're thinking, okay, well, we feed them. Maybe it's new, so we'll give them water. We'll sort of take them for a walk. But how many times do you see people taking their dogs for a walk and they're on their cell phones?
Yeah.
They're on their cell phones. They're missing one of the greatest opportunities of their life just in the walk, just to connect in the walk. And let me just share with you one way. Most of us do not take advantage of opening up our senses to the world around us. We are locked into our minds. Got to get it done, got to get done. Oh my gosh, I'm stressed. Oh, what happened yesterday? Oh, what happened tomorrow? We're not present. We are locked into our technology, doing the cell phone, doing, whatever it is. But in that moment of walking your dog, that is the most prime opportunity, especially if you do it first thing in the morning. I'm all about doing morning rituals and getting all the energy and the setup for the rest of your day. Walking with your dog, their senses, their ability to smell is so much more heightened than ours. So when I see my dog smelling things, smelling the trees, they're smelling so much information in that tree. It's an opportunity for me to stop and go, hey, let me smell the trees. Let me smell nature. What is going on? Let me open up that sense, which I don't even remember using. Or let me start using my visual senses. Let me look at the variations of bark on that tree, or the blue sky, or the green around me. Let me start hearing the children laughing in that playground that I otherwise would have ignored. Or let me hear somebody calling me. Let me hear the ocean waves. There's the rustle of the trees, the breeze. So many things. And it opens us up to be in touch with nature. And I think that is one of the keys. Let me just say, as an acupuncturist, we're all about connecting with nature. That is one of the prime ways that we can stay healthy through our life, this connection to nature. And because we tend to pull away from nature so much and are involved in our heads and in our technology, dogs and cats also are nature's gatekeepers in our homes. They really are. They're nature in our homes. And they are the gatekeepers to that outer world to remind us to connect. So I would say that would be one particular way, an opportunity that they allow us, they give us.
I will definitely leave my phone at the house the next time I take her out.
Excellent.
Yeah.
No, you know what? Please don't leave it at your house, because I actually did have an accident once, and
really?
I needed my cell phone. But
all right, I will tuck it away.
Tuck it away in your little. I'll tell you where. If you carry a little treat bag.
Yeah.
Because treats are always a great way to learn communication with your dog. If you can just put it in your little treat bag, just for an emergency, just in case.
Yes, I would take her when I go for a walk. I have a little treat bag, and every time we got to an intersection, the thing that I was trying to teach her was to sit. When we get to an intersection, she would sit. Mm-hmm. So I'd be like, sit. Sit, and eventually she would sit, and I would give her a treat. Now when I go out, I don't need the treats. We get to an intersection. I stop, she stops, she sits, and she knows that we got to look both ways before we cross the road.
Wow, she's smart.
You're smart. So, but it took a couple months of that, but yeah, she's at that point.
Yeah,
now.
Dibbits are that way.
Dibbits, yeah.
Yes.
People like lists, so give me the top 3 health benefits to having a pet.
Sure. I would say the first one would be better heart health. Another would be better fitness, and 3, less stress. I think those are pretty on the top. So
how do we, let's say we have one of those conditions, how do we, I don't want to say utilize the pet, but how can I take advantage of that? How can I, get out with the pet, and what's that look like?
What does that look like?
Lowering those 3 things.
Right. The lowest common denominator.
Yeah, right. How's that look?
Well, first, I'm glad that you said not utilizing the pet, because this is all about a mutual relationship. This is not just like, what can they do for me?
Right.
Because the key to all of this is relationship. Scientific American actually did a whole issue on the healing benefits of animals, and one of the things that they said is having a close relationship with your dog is really what will key all this in.
Okay, so that comes first.
That comes first,
forming
absolutely.
the bond and having the relationship, and then
Yes.
the other things sort of fall in line.
The other things, well, I think that like any relationship, it does require time and energy, and if if you're married, that requires some work. That requires some time, but hopefully it's fun work and it's great work, and you reap the rewards infinitely from that. I will say that, so that's where it begins. But let's say that for example, some of the things that our animals can help us with, well, fitness also ties into good heart health, because you need to exercise to have a strong heart. and also for longevity. So walking your dog's a great one. But also think about the other aspect. You know, it can't just be about walking. There are other aspects to being fit. For example, stretching, what I like to call the exercises of longevity, yoga, tai chi. Those were all brought to us by the people who first developed these by looking at animals, by looking at nature, seeing the movements in animals. That's how these came to be. We can utilize that. We can, for example, if you ever look at first thing in the morning, I look at my animals when I get up after I've done my own little meditations and things. I look at them and I see, wow, look at how deeply they're breathing. I better remember to breathe like this. I better remember to really take some deep breaths this morning. Look at my cat. She's doing cat, you know, that yoga stretch. Look at my dog. He's doing downward dog. I do those first thing in the morning. And funny enough, then I'll go spend a little time meditating. They'll come with me. They'll lay there around me, and it's a really beautiful thing.
I was going to ask you if you practice yoga, being an acupuncturist, and if there was a dog in a cat pose.
They are. Oh, they are. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, there are. And I love them. Yeah, and it's a fantastic one for your spine. You know, if you ever notice people as they age, they're kind of going down. This is a great one to lengthen your spine and to have a healthy back.
Oh, great.
So all of these things lead to good heart health. You know, exercise, feeling good, feeling happy. Is there anything better for your heart?
Right.
There's no way. I'll tell you, the topper, when I wake up, is I look at my animals. They're always looking at me. They make me smile. They make me laugh. They make me happy. And that sets me up for the rest of my day.
All right, I want to dig a little deeper into the benefits. Can you tell me some surprising things that we might not know about?
I'll tell you one of the things that surprised me the most. How many people have a story? I thought that I had my stories. I thought my patients shared with me their stories. But let me tell you, as soon as I told people I was writing this book and what it is, I can't tell you immediately, if they're an animal lover, they launch into their story. I didn't know how widespread this was, and every story people tell me, I'm like, wow, that's fantastic. Wow, that's great. I'll share with you one story that I found. You never know when you're going to find a story either. I met a man who was homeless. He told me a story of having a dog who, when he lived in Virginia, and his wife, unfortunately, passed away. He was very distraught, and he unfortunately had lost all of his money paying for her medical bills, so he had really nothing left. And her dream was to walk to California, or not to walk to California, but to go to California. And I like the way he put it. He says, when you live in Virginia, I guess that's the only place you can go west. So he decided to walk. He walked to the West Coast. He ended up in Seattle first, then walked down to California with his dog.
That's determination.
That is something. And
the dog went with him.
The dog went with him. And what he said was that he was so distraught when his wife died, he thought of taking his own life. And that night he had a dream about his dog, and that his dog was and her name was Poppy. And she was just sitting at the door looking at him, and he thought, oh, she's waiting for my wife. And he's like, no, she's waiting for me. And if I leave her, she will have no one. And I'm her best friend. So I can't die. So he walked with her, and he lives in our area. And he says he doesn't like to consider himself homeless. He just says he likes to live outside. But these are the stories that just by speaking with someone, it's incredible what they will share with you.
You're right. Dogs, cats, it's like an instant icebreaker. It's an instant, oh, you're a cat person, you're a dog person. Oh, and then it's just the ice. I mean, when we sat down, it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
You know?
And the thing was, it's interesting about the story is it's also a cat story, because at the beginning, his wife there would be people who'd get older and have to go into assisted living facilities, and she would take their cats. And she would basically adopt their cats, and every few weeks or so, she would take all the cats to the places, the assisted living facilities, so they could visit with their guardians.
Wow.
And I just thought it was the most tremendous story.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Did you hear about the dog and the cross-country marathon runner in Gobi?
Yeah, I did hear about this, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I also heard there was a similar story about, I think it might have even been the same kind of dog. I never can say them correctly. Lapsa? Was it that the kind of dog?
I don't know. It looked... It was a scruffy-looking little dog.
Yes,
but yeah.
Well, there was another story. I think it was in Nepal with these cyclists that were cycling through the country, and his little dog just chased them the entire time. Of course, they adopted him.
It was amazing. This guy ran, hundreds of miles or whatever, and the dog just followed him the whole way through the whole race. They named him Gobi.
They named him Gobi. That's a great name. One other thing I want to share with you that comes to mind that did surprise me, and I think this might have been one of my reasons that really propelled me into this direction because it was so life-changing for me. I had a dog that I adopted who sort of adopted me. This is the way it goes with dogs. I went to a shelter because I had found a dog. And I thought, well, maybe the guardians will come back to the shelter. And I told them, look, the only reason I'm bringing her here is because you will hopefully find the people. But if she doesn't, I'll take her. They came for her, but in the meantime, there was another dog in her little kennel that I didn't even see the sign that said, don't put your hand in here. And I did put my hand in there, and this dog just came, sat down, put her paw on my hand, and just laid her little chin on me, and on my hands. And I was like, oh my God, this dog just chose me. I cannot leave her here.
Oh, yeah.
But she had a lot of problems. When I took her, she had a lot of problems. And at the time, I read in the newspaper, there was an article that showed a man with about, 20 dogs that were all scruffy and just out street dogs. And his name was Cesar Millan, the dog whisperer. And he said he helped dogs who had very big issues. And this dog turned out to have a lot of aggression issues. She had been taken from a drug bust in Watts. And so she obviously had been mistreated, neglected, so many things. And I needed help because I didn't know how to take care of her. And I went to see him. And there were 15 other people. It was an aggressive dog class, and there were 15 other people. And I stood there with my dog who was acting out. It was awful. And he comes out and he goes, well, who's the most aggressive dog here? And everybody pointed at me. And I'm like, no. Anyway, exactly. He said, let me borrow your dog. And he started walking with her, and he said, 2 other people with aggressive dogs. So he now had 3 dogs, and he's walking around this big horse arena. And the next thing I know, and my dog's acting up. She's like trying to bite him, trying to bite the dogs, trying to get back to me. I'm like, oh my gosh, he's never going to help her. He literally walks around a tree. It took a second. They were all carefully walking together by the end of it. And everybody in that group gasped. They're like, wow, how's that possible? He came up to me and he goes, now you walk with them. So I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I start walking and I hear him say, hey, why are you so tense? And I said, because I know what she's capable of. Mm-hmm. He goes, you have to let that go. That was yesterday. If you ever stand a chance of helping her, you need to let go of your own stuff. So I understood in that moment how my emotional state went down the leash and affected her. So in a sense, to help her, I had to help myself. I had to move through my own stuff, my own fears, my own tension, my own stress, my own anger, my own disappointments, those kind of things. So it taught me that when I look at my dogs or my cats and they're acting out in some way, there may be something that needs to be taken care of in the house, but then I need to look inside. I need to see what I am giving off. And I certainly did see that the more I took care of my own self, my own health and well-being in this way, the better they were. So that is a surprising thing that I learned.
The book and your research and your approach, it sounds like this has become a mission for you. Can you talk about that?
Sure. I've loved animals my whole life. My whole life. I mean, from day one, I felt a great connection to them. And as I grew up, I always thought, well, I would love to help, dogs, cats, all animals. I love animals. And I had a natural interest also in health and well-being, and I never understood how to merge those two. I never knew. I thought to myself, wouldn't it be great if I could somehow merge these things and make it be mine? When I started to write this book, I realized I finally had gotten to that place where I was able to, what I call my mission statement is to have the greatest positive effect on animals and the people who love them. So that's my mission, really, is to help animals, to help people with their health, to connect both of them so that they can all live happily, more healthy, and more extraordinary.
So you're taking things that you're good at and things that you love to do and you put them together.
Yes. And I think that in the end, if you can find that, I've been looking for that my whole life, and I finally have found it. So I hope that for everyone, because it's immensely satisfying and it feels like that's my purpose and that's what I'm here to do.
In the spirit of helping people, let's help the viewers right now. What are some things people can do today to start improving their relationships with their companions?
I would say one of the best experiences, or one of the best suggestions I would make, is to, when you go for a walk with your dog, go for the experience of the walk. Allow yourself to go for the experience of the walk just like your dog will. Instead of put your cell phone away, bring yourself into the present. Don't worry about yesterday or tomorrow. Just focus on now. Give yourself, being in the moment, give yourself that gift. I would say that that is one important thing to do. A second thing that I could suggest is, this is for you cat lovers. Have you ever noticed how most of us are in a hurry and then we eat our food really fast? Have you ever noticed a cat eat? They're slow. They kind of just do it very methodically. They take their time. Sometimes they walk away. Maybe they'll come back. I think a lot of us could really benefit from watching a cat and how they eat. For ourselves, our better digestion is slow down, just be conscious of your food. Actually taste your food. See how it feels going down, chew a little bit. I think that would be a great opportunity for people to take that in. And I would say that maybe even the most important is to nurture your partnerships. Nurture your relationships. It's what I call nurturing your ships. Nurture your guardianship of your animals. Nurturing that bond will really amplify all of the benefits that they can possibly offer you.
Those are great.
Thank you.
This has been a fantastic interview. I'm so glad you came. I'm so glad we had this time together.
I've really enjoyed it, Carl. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.